Welcome to Carnegie. Today I have the pleasure to interview Philip Siberg, CEO of Senzime. Very welcome, Philip.
Thank you very much.
And very nice to have you here. And if you just could start with a short introduction of Senzime.
So Senzime is a medical device company. We are headquartered in Uppsala, but originate out of long-term research in the US, specifically from Mayo Clinic. And what we do is we developed a system to monitor neuromuscular block and neuromuscular function in the operating room. So we've developed a system that stimulates the muscles of the patient, and then in real time gives you the number of how blocked is this patient, how paralyzed is this patient during surgery, to make sure you get the right dose of specifically anesthesia drugs, and that you are extubated or you can breathe spontaneously again on your own.
Mm-hmm. And you have had some pretty nice performance looking at the 2023, and this has continued into 2024. Maybe you just could summarize what is behind this very, very strong sales growth that you have reported.
Yeah. So I mean, we've been a classic medical device research company for a long time. We passed through all the regulatory hurdles, and then about 18 months ago, clinical guidelines came that recommended objective neuromuscular monitoring on all patients that receive these types of anesthetic drugs I mentioned. So this became a true catalytic event in the market, where suddenly there was a pull from the market, and we went from a small growth rate to growing pretty much at triple-digit growth rates. So very, very strong demand in the market.
Could you perhaps describe the reception of these new guidelines? If we could start with the perspective from the US side.
Yeah. So the US, the American Society of Anesthesiologists, they are a society with, I think, 40,000 anesthesiologists. They agreed and they published on these guidelines in the fall of 2022, when they were published in the spring of 23. And they came out and said that because of the high rate of complications related to these drugs, they said, again, mandating that everybody should be monitored with an objective monitor. And then there's guidelines on how to use it, how to reverse patients, etc. So when that came, we suddenly very quickly saw a strong demand from the market because there was a lack of monitoring in the US market. The European guidelines came pretty much at the same time, independent of the American. So they were two different working groups, and the conclusions were pretty much the same. The Europeans were a little bit even tougher, saying that there should be a monitor in every single operating room by each bed. So while in Europe there has been a tradition of monitoring, so the change hasn't really been the same kind of trajectory as of yet, but it is converting as well.
And you feel you are in a good position in Europe, or is it more competitive?
So Europe has had a tradition of using a more legacy type of technology. It's called acceleromyography, which is a more mechanical, indirect way. What you do is you give small electrical impulses, and then you measure what happens with the thumb. How is the thumb actually moving mechanically based on what happens in this? So this technology came out in the 1990s. It's been integrated. There are standalone devices. We believe there's about 80,000 AMG monitors out there with strong penetration in the European market. There is a strong, I would say, criticism to the AMG technology because it's been shown to have very low accuracy. It's up to 50% deviating. So it's difficult for the clinician to actually make correct clinical choices based on the AMG technology. The AMG is also you need to calibrate it, there's various devices. So there's been a strong demand for a more accurate, simple, digital, single-use disposable electrode. So that's what EMG, that's what we are pioneering.
Yeah, but on the flip side, I mean, it's a little bit cheaper technology as well. You don't have to
It is, yeah. So we introduced a single-use disposable electrode that stimulates and records, which is a small kind of component. It's a very, very small fraction of the cost of anesthesia. While AMG has more a reusable device that you put on the thumb But what we've heard in the market is that people throw these away, so the cost is, in the end, quite similar.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And let's just stay a little bit longer with the U.S. market. And I mean, you have seen a very good uptick in the U.S. Should we expect this is the early adopters we see, or do you see this broadening out to a wider space?
It is. I mean, it started, if you look at the pyramid of hospitals in the U.S., we've secured many of them on the kind of top 20 level. And I see that's where we and competition, that's where it started, and then it starts trickling down. So we've secured over the last 12 months large IDN, university hospitals, academic institutions. They are the kind of the front runners in the US, and they define how to make this change. I am seeing that these quite long competitive clinical evaluation processes are now shrinking, and I'm seeing that smaller hospitals are more quickly adapting to the technology. They're looking at what are the people doing in the top level, and then this is trickling down.
Perfect. And I also would like to jump to, you're presenting some exciting news when it comes to upgrading or updating your monitor.
Yes.
Could you describe?
Yeah, so very proud to announce the next generation TetraGraph. So we started the development of the TetraGraph almost 12 years ago. We gained our FDA clearance in 2019. And then we have now, nearly 3,000 units in the market. But as this technology and the demand is now trickling down, it's becoming widespread, and the demand is very widespread. So based on collaborations and long-term research with anesthesiologists around the globe, we are at the ASA meeting in Philadelphia now unveiling the next generation TetraGraph. It's really, I would say, three key messages here. One is it's a suite of intelligent algorithms that makes it easy to use. It makes it individualized, so it automatically adjusts all the positioning and the configurations to you as a specific patient. And then it automates the process. So for an anesthesiologist, a clinician, it's a one push button, and then it just keeps on going throughout the procedure. So that's one, we call it adaptive intelligence. The other set of features is a new user interface. So what we're introducing is a gauge based on the recommendations of the guidelines. It's sort of like your car. It's sort of like a gauge that guides and gives the level of blockade throughout the patient journey. So neuromuscular monitoring is very complex because there's different levels of block that the patient is in. So it's been one of the limitations of its widespread adoption has been the complexity of the procedure. But now we're just making it so simple for clinicians to follow throughout the procedure. And then the third message is the 6th generation EMG algorithm. So we're introducing a brand new technology that increases the resolution with 4x. It's a totally new feature set that really makes it this industry-leading precision for clinicians. And on top of that, we've meticulously chosen materials to be sustainable, and I think we have the only ISO 14001 very environmental friendly production process, which is important to fulfill kind of the sustainability demands of hospitals.
And this product, is this ready to launch?
It is, yeah. So we're making the big buzz here at the ASA meeting in Philadelphia, unveiling it to the world, and we will commence shipments November, December timeframe in the US, and then we will start shipping in Europe in Q1, and then the rest of the world will follow as regulatory clearances in other markets. And
do you change the price in any way, or?
We are, because of the very strong value-added features that we are providing to this, we are increasing the price a little bit, yes.
And the former TetraGraph, that will be removed from the market?
That will still, so we will have a segmented product portfolio, so we will have kind of the TetraGraph Classic with a more kind of attractive price point where it's a very well-established product that meets the needs of some, I would say, hospital systems. While the new next generation has the feature set that attracts other types of, I think, a broader scale of customers. So there's two different ways here to meet the market needs.
do you feel a bit more confident than perhaps before even that you are the leading product in this
I do.
standalone?
Yeah, this is a fantastic effort. I think it's a truly a game changer in the industry that we're launching. So I'd love to have the product to show here, but it's a game-changing way to do this. And as we worked with key opinion leaders across the world to develop this, the feedback has been enormous. And I can unveil that orders are coming in before we haven't even launched the product.
Okay. Do you think that perhaps some customers have been awaiting this launch?
I think so. Yeah. I think it's been not a very well-kept secret in the industry because we work with so many people around the world around this. But I think one of the we may have received some criticisms from prospective users that our device is so technically superior, while we could perfect kind of the user interface a little bit more. So now we've really emphasized on design and usability and attracting kind of not just the professor on top, but the widespread user in hospitals.
Sounds very nice, and looking forward to get more information about this new product launch. But could you perhaps stay a little bit longer when it comes to competition, because you have a market, you're not that many companies active, but you have two large players, Philips and GE Healthcare. Maybe you just could give us a brief how is they performing in this market?
Yeah. Just to back up, I mean, there's three different types of competitors for us. One is you do nothing. So classic anesthesiologist doesn't monitor, just kind of looks at the patient, says you're free to wake up. Two is the big GE, Philips type of companies that have plug-in modules within their patient monitoring systems. So Philips is a fantastic big market leader. They have an AMG module, which they have, in tens of thousands of monitors out there. So very broad penetration. For example, in Sweden, they have a very high market share of this. So it's typically sold as accessories. So when you buy the patient monitor, you kind of just tick in, I want this. I would say that on the flip side, 2/3 of our business is connected to Philips monitors. So we have a collaboration with Philips where we connect in, our number is shown on the Philips screen. So I would say despite people having the plug-in, they prefer to buy our product. And that's again because of the issues with AMG as a technology. So then GE, they have a plug-in EMG system. The drawback of I would say the GE system is that they use standardized electrodes that they hook up with cables, and it's a very burdensome process. And we secured one of our larger deals this summer that was announced. That was a GE account. They had the GE EMG plug-in, but they said, we want the TetraGraph, we want a portable technology that we can move around with the patient, and we want disposable, simple to use, takes seconds to put on the electrode.
Okay. Perfect.
And then the third set of competition or other players like us that have portable EMG devices. One of our main competitors in the US is a company called Blink.
Yep.
They launched slightly before us in the US, but we were first to market in Europe. But they have a very nice product. They've done a good job. But with the feature set that we're now bringing out, we're really elevating our position in the market.
But how much have you met competition from Blink in the tenders that you have been participating?
I would say it's always, if it's a tender process or an evaluation, they always benchmark us versus Blink.
Okay.
Yeah. So
that's the main competitor.
That's the main competitor. Yes.
Okay. Perfect. And just looking ahead then, you have issued some new financial guidance rather recently. You're optimistic that the business will continue to grow strongly. If you could perhaps describe.
Yeah, so we issued some guidance back 2 years ago in the fall of 2022.
Yeah.
At that point, the company did a very thorough kind of analysis of the opportunity with the insights the company had 2 years ago. So now we know so much more. And what we learned at that time, what we thought at that time was that the guidelines, specifically in Europe, would take off the business faster. And what we saw that was US performed better than we thought. and so did South Korea and Japan. But Europe has been slower in adoption rate. So all in all, what we did was we came out and we said, okay, because of this, we're pushing kind of our targets a little bit forward 1 year, because there were macro effects in the market that was hard for us to affect on. So we said 2026, the guidance is to have revenues in the range of 250 to 350 million Swedish kronor, be cash flow positive during the year, and really distinguish ourselves as the true market leader in this field. And then we also just said that the next strategic milestone is to reach 1 billion SEK in sales. And if you look at our ratios that we have today and the margins, etc., that translates to a very profitable company.
Mm-hmm. But looking at your 2026 sales target, I mean, how important is it that Europe really takes off?
We've honestly lowered the expectations, make it more moderate expectations on the European market. So for me, it's the importance here is that the US continues in the traction and the trajectory that we're seeing. And again, I think the new next generation TetraGraph will help to accelerate the penetration, specifically of kind of the more mass market of hospitals that need something simple to get started.
Mm-hmm. Sounds good. And to reach your goals in 2026, you'd raised 86 million SEK recently.
Yeah, we did.
Why?
So we did a directed shares issue. We attracted quickly some of our key institutions and also a few new ones. We raised 86 million. We raised it at the average market price. So it was really done without discount. And we also made a signal to the market that we have a lot of alternative financing options on the table. Yeah. So as we grow now, there are attractive alternative options. It's not just equity and potential dilution that's on the table. So that was the signal I wanted to tell, that we're probably going to evaluate some type of... ultimately, I want my customers to pay my bills. But on the way there, I can probably use some type of a credit line as we grow the business.
Mm-hmm. And then my final question would be a little bit if you can comment on, we touched upon this earlier, but the order intake and the activity from customers today compared to a year ago or something like that.
No, I think the buzz is out there. The activity is the same. If I look at the ASA, the annual congress I mentioned, the congress starts with a big panel discussion. That's kind of the first topic of the meeting. It's like how to implement the new clinical guidelines around neuromuscular monitoring. So it's the big people, it's the panel talking about how to do this and helping to advocate. And by implementing the technology right, it's a patient safety issue, but you also can eliminate a lot of drugs that are used because you can help the patient spontaneously wake up rather than giving them expensive drugs that may be posed to risk to the patient. So definitely the buzz is out there, and we're seeing an increase in utilization rate in the accounts that we have. And the utilization rate now is a lot higher than it was, I would say, 12, 18 months ago.
Okay.
So the accounts that are really investing into this are having the traction that we want.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Philip.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
And thank you for listening.